These Epoe CWS homeware tanks, later nicknamed Assassins by their crews, carried hundreds of gallons of napalm-based fuel and could deliver fire streams over 100 yards. The plan was to integrate them into the first assault waves, using their terrifying presence to break Japanese resistance and protect advancing infantry. The terrain of Iwo Jima further amplified the importance of these tanks. Mount Suribachi, the island's southern peak, dominated the beaches and offered the Japanese a natural observation point. Its slopes were riddled with hidden bunkers and firing positions. Lava rock made digging difficult, but Kuribayashi had turned natural fissures into lethal firing points. The Japanese had also developed a network of tunnels capable of moving troops and supplies unseen, allowing defenders to survive bombardments and strike unexpectedly. The Marines would have to fight not only visible fortifications, but an entire underground maze that defied traditional assault tactics. Naval and aerial bombardments had begun on February 16, 3 days before the planned landing. Battleships fired massive shells while carrier aircraft dropped hundreds of tons of bombs. Yet intelligence reports and reconnaissance photographs revealed that the bombardment had limited effect on the underground defences. The Japanese, entrenched and disciplined, would be waiting. Every landing craft that approached the beaches would face a storm of fear. Amid this preparation, Marines trained intensively to coordinate with the newly modified tanks. Tank crews practiced navigating rough volcanic terrain, while infantry rehearsed movements designed to stay in the tank's protective shadow. Flamethrower teams were briefed on fuel capacities, nozzle ranges, and tactics for clearing pillboxes. Commanders emphasized timing, communication, and the psychological impact. The sight of fire erupting from a tank often caused defenders to abandon positions, but the opposite was also true. Well-disciplined troops could fight to the last man, making coordination essential. By the time the first landing craft approached Iwo Jima, the stage was set for a battle that would combine ingenuity, firepower, and sheer human endurance. Every detail of preparation, from artillery shelling to flamethrower tank integration, was designed to address a single brutal fact: the Japanese defenders would not yield easily. The Marines were about to confront an enemy who had turned an island into a fortress, and the flamethrower tanks would soon prove why they were considered indispensable for this fight. The roar of engines and distant artillery hinted at what was coming next, a confrontation where man, machine and fire would collide in a way that neither side could fully anticipate. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi understood the stakes. Unlike many Japanese commanders who favoured suicidal charges, he recognised that Iwo Jima's volcanic terrain and narrow beaches could be turned into a lethal trap. Kuribayashi's strategy emphasised attrition, forcing the Americans to pay a high price for every yard of ground. Soldiers were stationed deep within tunnels that twisted beneath the island, connecting pillboxes, artillery positions, and hidden machine gun nests. Each tunnel allowed for resupply, reinforcement, and evacuation, enabling defenders to survive the most intense bombardments and strike unexpectedly. Japanese troops were trained to fight to the last man, yet they were also taught stealth and patience. They minimised exposure on the beaches, striking only when the enemy was within kill zones. Artillery and mortars were camouflaged, snipers held positions that overlooked every landing approach. Soldiers endured harsh living conditions, storing water and food in hidden caches within the rock. Kuribayashi's men had prepared for months, fortifying positions with concrete and steel and constructing trap-filled interiors designed to crush morale as well as bodies. They saw the first flamethrower Shermans were loaded and checked, ready to project death and terror into the heart of a fortress that had never known such a weapon. The Marines would land at dawn. The stage was set for a confrontation where technology, tactics, and sheer human will would collide, and the flamethrower tanks would soon demonstrate why they were feared by friend and foe alike. For the Marines, stepping onto Iwo Jima's black sands was a confrontation with terror unlike any they had experienced. The roar of naval guns, the crack of enemy rifles, and the sudden eruption of flamethrower fire created a chaotic symphony of violence. Each Marine carried the weight of survival and duty. Every step forward meant risking death in an environment where cover was scarce and the enemy invisible. Some paused, staring at the horizon where volcanic rock met the surf, calculating the odds of surviving another volley of machine gun fire. Others pressed on instinctively, trained to move under fire, trusting the armour of their Sherman tanks and the fire they projected. For Japanese troops, the human calculus was different, yet no less intense. Trapped within concrete bunkers and lava rock tunnels, they faced an inferno that turned their fortifications into ovens. Fear was constant, yet discipline remained. Soldiers had been drilled to withstand bombardment, to fight until the last man. The arrival of flamethrower tanks forced a confrontation with a new kind of terror. Some attempted to flee through tunnels, only to find exits cut off by advancing tanks. Others stayed in position, embracing their orders to resist at any cost. For both sides, the battle became a test of endurance, courage, and sheer will against an enemy empowered by fire. From a tactical perspective, flamethrower tanks changed the nature of the fight. The Americans faced an enemy deeply entrenched, protected by tunnels and bunkers that resisted conventional artillery. Infantry alone could not penetrate these positions without incurring catastrophic casualties. The solution came in combined arms operations, where tanks and infantry moved in synchronized waves. Sherman flamethrowers advanced first, projecting napalm into pillboxes, flushing defenders, and creating openings for Marines to move through the volcanic terrain. Commanders had to account for terrain, tunnel networks, and Japanese counterattacks. Tanks could not operate independently. They required infantry support to protect against ambushes, mines, and anti-tank weapons. Engineers followed closely, clearing obstacles and identifying booby traps. Communication was essential. Tank crews used radios to coordinate with infantry, ensuring each bunker was neutralized efficiently. The tactical effectiveness of flamethrower tanks lay in both firepower and psychological impact. A pillbox subjected to napalm became untenable almost instantly. The Japanese defenders, previously confident in their fortifications, now faced a weapon that could reach into every corner, every slit, every chamber. Observers reported that entire tunnel complexes fell silent once a flamethrower approached, a testament to the weapon's ability to dominate not just physically, but mentally. At the same time, tactical risks were high. Tanks could become trapped in volcanic ash, immobilized by rubble or concealed craters. Japanese soldiers attempted to disable engines, set mines, or fire rockets at close range. Commanders had to weigh aggression against caution, pushing tanks forward to maximize effect while minimizing losses. Coordination between elements, the roar of a tank's flamethrower, the advance of infantry, the covering fire from artillery, became a delicate choreography of destruction. Both human courage and tactical innovation were inseparable on Iwo Jima. Diaries and after-action reports reflect a complex understanding. The flamethrower was both a technical marvel and a harbinger of death, demanding courage and composure from those who wielded it. The combination of technology, enemy response, and moral weight created a battlefield unlike any other. The flamethrower tank was more than a weapon. It was a force multiplier, a psychological tool, and a test of human resilience. It forced Japanese defenders into untenable positions and demanded extraordinary discipline and coordination from American forces. With human courage, tactical innovation, and technological adaptation converging, the stage was set for the decisive moments to come. The first encounters with flamethrower tanks would not only shape the course of Iwo Jima, but redefine the possibilities of assaulting fortified positions in the Pacific War. February 1945. The first wave of Marines hit Iwo Jima's black volcanic beaches. The surf was cold and unrelenting, and each landing craft pitched under the weight of equipment, ammunition, and the men tasked with taking an island the Japanese had turned into a fortress. Rifle fire erupted immediately. Machine guns raked the beach, cutting down the first ranks. Mortar shells exploded nearby, sending clouds of sand and rock into the air. In this chaos, the flamethrower tanks emerged. Sherman variants, heavily modified with thick aimer and fuel-filled nozzles, advanced through the volcanic terrain, engines roaring, the flamethrowers spitting napalm into enemy bunkers. The first tanks approached the northern beaches, where Japanese pillboxes had pinned down advancing Marines for hours. With streams of fire, they neutralized the fortifications, forcing defenders out of hiding or incinerating positions that had resisted artillery for days. Well, the first significant engagements occurred at Hill 362, where Japanese tunnels twisted deep into the volcanic rock. Conventional infantry assaults had stalled, with Marines taking heavy casualties under relentless fire. The flamethrower tanks arrived as the solution. Engineers mocked hidden entrances while tanks projected fire into the openings. Smoke and flame poured into the bunkers, and the defenders' resolve faltered. Reports described the effectiveness as near total. Positions once considered impregnable were reduced to ash or abandoned entirely. Mount Suribachi, looming over the southern beaches, became the centerpiece of the battle. The Japanese had fortified every slop, connecting caves and pillboxes in a network designed to trap attackers. Flamethrower tanks were assigned the most dangerous sector, clearing bunkers that overlooked critical marine approaches. Crews manoeuvred over uneven lava rock, often at risk of tipping or bogging down. Yet the tank's sheer power forced Japanese soldiers to retreat deeper into the island or perish in place. The psychological effect on both sides was profound. For the Marines, the roar of flame was both terrifying and reassuring. Their lives depended on these machines. For the Japanese, the sight of armoured vehicles advancing with streams of fire was demoralizing. Many soldiers attempted to fight from secondary positions, only to find that the flamethrower could reach into interior chambers, cutting off escape. Communication and discipline became vital. Tank commanders signalled infantry with hand signals and radios, coordinating assaults so that no Marine advanced into the path of an uncontrolled flame or enemy counterattack. One engagement near a network of southern bunkers illustrates the intensity of the assault. Japanese defenders had constructed a labyrinth of tunnels with multiple exits, planning to ambush advancing infantry. Flamethrower tanks rolled into position, spewing fire into the entrances. Smoke and heat drove defenders back, allowing engineers to demolish obstacles and Marines to secure the high ground. Despite these dangers, each tank that reached a bunker or tunnel entrance effectively neutralized it, clearing a path for infantry to ascend. The psychological impact on Japanese troops intensified. For men who had spent months preparing defences, the sight of armoured vehicles spewing fire into positions previously considered secure was devastating. Some soldiers surrendered. Others attempted to escape through tunnels only to encounter more flamethrower-equipped tanks waiting at exits. Reports from survivors describe panic, confusion, and a profound sense of inevitability as flames advanced relentlessly through the net. By February 25, the combined effect of flamethrower tanks and infantry assaults had created a series of breakthroughs along the island's southern and central ridges. Japanese defences were being systematically dismantled, bunker by bunker, tunnel by tunnel. Engineers moved with tank crews, demolishing remaining obstacles and clearing paths for subsequent advances. The island, once a fortress that had seemed impenetrable, was gradually being claimed through fire, coordination, and sheer persistence. The Marines faced continued resistance in the northern and central sectors, where tunnels interconnected over long distances. Flamethrower tanks proved crucial in neutralizing these underground networks. Crews developed techniques to flush defenders from interior chambers without exposing infantry to deadly crossfire. The combination of mechanical firepower and tactical innovation allowed Marines to advance where traditional assault methods had failed. Mount Suribachi fell to the 5th Marine Division on February 23, a symbolic and strategic victory. The flag raising would later become an iconic image of the Pacific War, but the real story was the relentless, methodical clearing of fortifications using flamethrower tanks. Japanese soldiers continued to resist in the northern hills and tunnel complexes, but the momentum had shifted irreversibly. The once feared fortress was yielding, the flames having turned defensive strongpoints into death traps. Casualties were high on both sides. By the end of February, thousands of Marines were wounded or killed, their survival often dependent on the support of armoured flamethrower units. Japanese forces suffered catastrophic losses, with only a fraction of the original 21,000 troops remaining alive and scattered in the northern sector. The combination of fire, coordinated infantry assaults, and tactical ingenuity had decisively broken the backbone of the Japanese defence. In the final days of the battle, flamethrower tanks continued to dominate. Any remaining bunkers or pillboxes encountered were subjected to the same relentless application of fire. Engineers cleared debris, artillery provided suppression, and infantry followed the path blazed by the tanks. The last organised Japanese resistance collapsed by late March, leaving only isolated holdouts in tunnels and caves. Flamethrower tanks had not only neutralized fortifications but had reshaped the psychology of the battlefield, demonstrating that entrenched positions, no matter how formidable, could be overcome with coordinated firepower and ingenuity. By March 26, 1945, the island was declared secured. Iwo Jima had been transformed from an impregnable fortress into a hard-won victory, a testament to the interplay of courage, technology, and tactical planning. The flamethrower tanks had proven themselves indispensable, their ability to deliver concentrated, terrifying firepower, changing the course of the battle and saving countless Marine lives in the process. The decisive actions on Mount Suribachi and surrounding ridges marked not just the fall of an island, but a turning point in Pacific warfare. They demonstrated the deadly effectiveness of flamethrower tanks, reshaping assault tactics for fortified positions across the theatre. What had begun as a small volcanic outpost had become the crucible where innovation, human endurance, and firepower collided with devastating effect, setting the stage for the broader consequences of the Iwo Jima campaign. With the final pockets of Japanese resistance eliminated, the Marines and their flamethrower tanks could finally survey the aftermath of their assault. The beaches, once a scene of chaos and carnage, were littered with spent ammunition, shuttered landing craft, and the remnants of volcanic fortifications. Bunkers had been reduced to charred ruins, pillboxes demolished by concentrated streams of fire, and tunnels either collapsed or filled with smoke and debris. The flamethrower tanks had proven their purpose. Positions that would have required days of infantry assaults were neutralized in hours, their effectiveness validated by the staggering number of Japanese casualties. Casualty figures reflected the intensity of the conflict. The United States suffered approximately 6,800 killed and over 19,000 wounded, with flamethrower-supported assaults significantly reducing potential infantry losses in areas that had been fortified against conventional attacks. Japanese casualties were catastrophic, with an estimated 18,000 soldiers killed and only a few hundred captured. The overwhelming majority of these deaths occurred within caves and bunkers subjected to flamethrower attacks, highlighting the brutal effectiveness of this technology. Tactically, the battle demonstrated the power of combined arms operations. Infantry, artillery, engineers, and flamethrower tanks operated in concert, each element compensating for the vulnerabilities of the others. Tanks neutralized fortifications, artillery suppressed long-range fire, and infantry moved to secure cleared positions. The success of these coordinated assaults proved that heavily entrenched defences, once considered near impenetrable, could be overcome with precise planning, technological adaptation, and disciplined execution. The island itself bore the scars of unrelenting combat. Volcanic black sand had been churned into ash and rubble, hillsides cratered from naval bombardment and tank manoeuvres. Smoke lingered in valleys and tunnel entrances, a silent reminder of the fire that had swept through defensive networks. Engineers and Marines worked to clear obstacles and dispose of unexploded ordnance, while tank crews maintained and repaired vehicles, ensuring readiness for the final stages of the campaign. The psychological effects of the flamethrower tanks were as profound as their physical impact. Marines reported that seeing a tank advance with a stream of napalm brought a mixture of fear, awe, and reassurance. The weapon was terrifying to enemies but protective for those following closely. Japanese soldiers, trained to endure months of preparation and fortification, had found themselves powerless against a force that could penetrate every hiding place. Survivors later recounted the overwhelming terror caused by fear erupting from mad vehicles, often forcing surrender or flight into areas where they could be engaged again. From a tactical perspective, Iwo Jima validated the concept of integrating flamethrower tanks into amphibious assaults. The weapon not only allowed for faster clearing of fortified positions, but also changed the dynamics of infantry operations. Marines could advance with reduced exposure to enemy fire, engineers could demolish obstacles more safely, and the overall tempo of the assault increased. The success of these operations would influence subsequent campaigns in the Pacific, including Okinawa, where similar techniques were employed to counter entrenched defenders. Despite the victory, the cost was high. The island's blackened landscape and shattered fortifications stood as a grim testament to the intensity of combat. Every bunker cleared, every pillbox destroyed had required courage, coordination, and sacrifice.